But anyway, that's the note on that, and we'll go ahead and we got another caller waiting. Is it Eric?
Yes.
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Is there still this big, huge delay?
No, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, people who believe in God believe it on faith, and your definition is they've been convinced at some point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's the case.
So, and they don't have any scientific evidence or proof.
I don't know if they do or not. The thing is that when asked to present it, nobody's been able to.
Yeah, they don't have good evidence.
So if you don't believe in God,
correct?
Can you prove that He does not exist? Don't you not believe based on faith?
Nope.
No.
Do you believe in a God?
I don't know. I'm agnostic, not atheist.
Oh, why do you think the agnostic and atheist are mutually exclusive?
Yeah, so am I.
Because you're agnostic?
Yeah.
So you don't know if God exists or not?
That is correct.
Then you're not an atheist.
It depends. No. It depends on what you mean by knowledge. Theism and atheism address what you believe. Gnosticism and agnosticism address what you know or claim to know. Now, if you want to define knowledge as absolute certainty, then we're both agnostic atheists.
Okay.
We don't know that a God doesn't exist to an absolute certainty. But if you want to define knowledge in practical terms, the way we use it in everyday language, where we talk about we know something to some degree of certainty, if it's okay to say, I know there's no such thing as unicorns and leprechauns, if that qualifies as knowledge, then I'm a Gnostic theist. Because in the same sense that I know there's no leprechauns, I know there's no God.
Yes, but scientists didn't even believe that the Earth was round or that there were other galaxies at one point in time. We may have scientific knowledge to prove the existence or to prove the non-existence of God at some point.
Right. And if that happens, then we'll have a good reason to believe. But until then, we're just pure speculation.
What's your good reason for not believing?
Do you believe in the Loch Ness Monster?
I don't know, but probably not.
Probably not.
Okay. So
Can
what
you
evidence?
Prove the Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist?
Yeah. What evidence do you have to not believe it? To say it doesn't exist?
See, the default position for any claim, and I don't care, religious, as supernatural, natural, anything. The default position of any claim is not belief. You don't believe things until they're proven wrong. The only way that you believe something is that you've been convinced. You can be convinced for good reasons or bad reasons, but you have to be convinced.
But you believe there is no God.
I do, but that's not. An atheist is simply somebody who does not believe in a God.
Right.
Theism is the state of accepting the claim as true. Anything short of theism, whether you call yourself an agnostic, secular, humanist, whatever, is atheism. But there are different degrees of atheism as well.
I got you.
There's weak atheists and strong atheists. I disbelieve claims about God because there's not evidence for them. I also happen to believe that there is no God. This isn't something that I can prove or demonstrate to an absolute certainty, but you can't really have evidence that there is no God except for the fact that you can have evidence of the non-existence of something if the existence of it would produce expected evidence. For example, I have evidence that there aren't naked cheerleaders in this room because I would expect to be able to see them. And boy, wouldn't that be fun. So I can demonstrate through evidence that
you believe there's oxygen in that room, but you can't see that either.
It's not about what you can see, it's about what you can demonstrate. We can demonstrate that there's oxygen in this room.
You can also demonstrate that there's not cheerleaders in that room.
Yeah, sure. By looking around. But only because we would expect that if there were cheerleaders in the room, we'd be able to see them. Everybody would be distracted. There are certain things that we would expect as far as evidence, and the absence of those bits of evidence is what lets us know that there's not cheerleaders here. It's not absolute. There could be one hiding behind the curtain that I don't know about. She may have been back there since the beginning of the show, quiet as a mouse, and I have no way of doing that until I check. So when somebody makes a claim about the existence of a God, we look around and we say, where's the evidence to support your claim? The burden of proof is on the person making the claim, not the person who disbelieves the claim. I don't have to prove that. It's just like, and for example, Christians call in all the time with an argument similar to this. And one thing that I'd ask them is, you don't believe in Ganesh. Can you prove that Ganesh doesn't exist? So let's be honest. They're using the exact same standards of evidence determination. They're using the same colloquial understanding of knowledge that I am. So when I claim that I believe there, in fact, are no gods, it's because out of all the possible God hypotheses I've been presented with, none of them have been able to present evidence to support the claim. I see no good reason to even hypothesize that a God exists because it's ill-defined and can't possibly serve as a good explanation for anything.
Well, you believe in the Big Bang, and you believe in science.
Right.
So where is the scientific proof that something can come from nothing?
Something didn't come from nothing. You don't understand the Big Bang if you think that's what it says.
Well, Stephen Hawking's his own theory has been proven wrong. He admitted it himself of what it's all based on in the first place. And he believed in God.
No, actually Hawking doesn't believe in God.
He believed that with all the scientific evidence he had accrued, that there was quite possibly one.
No. Hawking does not believe in a God.
Okay.
However, it doesn't matter what Hawking believes.
It doesn't really matter. He's not some kind of authoritative source on the belief in God anyway.
But he is on the Big Bang Theory.
Right.
Okay, because he had some good ideas.
Theory on the black holes has been proven wrong.
If he came out tomorrow and said there must be a God, look at all this evidence and stuff like that, I'd call him a nutter on that issue. Now, as regard to all his theories of how the universe started and how cosmology works and stuff like that, I'd say he was really good in that respect. As far as claiming there's a God, unless he's got really good evidence, he's a nutter.
Okay, I'm not really arguing with you. I just choose to not take on faith that there is no God, just as I choose.
No, we're not.
And I don't. And we don't.
You've chosen to believe that there is.
And we don't.
It's not something I take on faith.
No one has shown me any good reason to believe it. No one has shown you any good real reason to believe in the Loch Ness Monster. Therefore, you probably don't.
You're not taking it on
until somebody
faith.
shows me good evidence to believe in a God. I don't.
But a certain amount of time ago, no one would have any good evidence to show that the world was round or that there are other galaxies.
Exactly.
But there were, though.
Exactly.
There were.
Though. Now we have evidence.
Your belief, your position on the truth has no effect on the truth.
I agreed with that.
Okay.
If I had been around 8,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, and they said here's how planets and stars work, and there are, 1 billion other planets and stars out there, they would have been nuts. And you would have been justified in calling them nuts because we have absolutely no evidence and no reason to believe something like that. Now we do.
Until they provide evidence to support the claim, belief of the claim isn't justified.
Exactly. As of today.
It's not taking it on faith.
But the person who would have said, I don't know, would have been more in the middle. And when
but they would have been wrong in terms of evidence. As of today, regardless of the fact
humans can't have enough evidence. We have so much further to go that we could prove the non-existence or the existence at some
exactly.
point.
And until that day, the best thing that we can do is say you have not presented enough evidence.
No, here's the thing, and this is where the point of confusion is. Agnosticism, no matter how you want to define it, isn't some happy intellectual middle ground. It's an avoidance of the question. The question is, do you believe a claim? And the claim is X. X exists. You either believe that the claim is true or you don't. That says nothing about. Let me finish.
You were just saying it's okay to say I don't know, and I'm saying I don't know.
Please let me finish.
Yes, sir.
There are two different claims. X exists, and you can believe it or disbelieve it. And there's a second claim, X does not exist. And you can either believe that or not believe that. Disbelieving X exists does not mean you necessarily accept the claim X does not exist. This is a fundamental, critical aspect of logic. This is where the distinction lies. Person makes a claim, X exists. I say, what is your evidence to support the claim? If they're unable to convince me of the truth of it, then I disbelieve it. I can also say to the person who says X does not exist, what's your evidence to support the claim? And if they don't have enough evidence to support their position, I disbelieve that one as well. I am non-committal on the truth factor, but I do not believe that it exists. This does not make me agnostic. It makes me an atheist.
Correct.
Because theism is defined as accepting that claim to be true. There's theism, atheism, and anti-theism. Just like there's moral, amoral, and immoral. Being amoral doesn't necessarily make you immoral, although you can be. And in this case, I'm both. I'm not claiming an absolute certainty that no God exists. I'm saying I believe it, and I can give you my reasons for it, and if you don't accept it, that's fine. But what I can tell you is that the people who make the claims that say God does exist have never, ever met the burden of proof.
I think neither side has, but that's fair. It's a fair conversation. I'm going to let you go.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
I don't know why. I realize that some of these concepts are. We're talking about how people use real language, really.
Yeah.
And the guy on the street says, "I'm an agnostic," but you didn't really tell me anything. I say, "Hey, do you believe in a God?" "Oh, I'm agnostic." The actual answer is no. I'm agnostic.
Yeah.
Because I asked what you believed, not what you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care what anybody knows or claims to know. At all. I care about what people believe, and why they believe it. Because your actions are based on your beliefs. If you believe something, tell me why you believe it. I'll either be convinced that you're correct because your evidence and argument is sound and good, and I'll believe it as well, or your evidence and argument is poor, and I won't be convinced. But I don't care if you say you know it. Oh, I know it. Well, maybe you're talking about absolute certainty. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're talking about a general kind of knowledge. I know there's no such thing as fairies or leprechauns, but you can't really, because maybe in one of the distant galaxies somewhere there are fairies, and they travel through wormholes to gardens. Yeah. You can come up with any kind of explanation you want. The point of the matter is that there are ways that we have of distinguishing between fact and fiction, of gaining a better understanding of reality. We have reliable methods. Logic and reasoning, or logical reasoning, being the primary foundation. There are rules of logic, and they exist because we can demonstrate that they're true. And then diverting away from mathematics, science makes use of logical reasoning in conjunction with testing, independent verification, repeated testing for consistency, falsification to demonstrate that a hypothesis is reliable and not producing an incidental result, and most importantly, peer review, because we're all fallible and we all make mistakes. So having your work reviewed by other experts in a particular field who can make sure that your test methodologies were correct, who can make sure that you did properly go about trying to falsify the information and verifying it, that you've done a number of studies, that's how something gets from being a hypothesis to a theory. Scientific theory isn't just, I've got a hunch. Scientific theory is the graduation point. It is the single most consistent and reliable method we have for gaining any accurate understanding of the universe. So when somebody tells me they don't believe in evidence, or they're willing to take something on faith despite evidence, feel free. I actually care whether or not my beliefs are true. Obviously you don't. We can demonstrate that faith's unreliable. Hell, the fact that there's 1,000 different denominations of Christianity, not to mention 1,000 different religions in the world that people are taking on faith, they can't all be right. They can, however, all be wrong. That is a valid possibility. So.